Okay, so here's my palette for almost any painting that I do. I have alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, sap green, raw umber, raw sienna, cad yellow light, and titanium white. I haven't put enough titanium white on there. I get through a lot of that. I always buy the really big tubes of that. I painted a picture and I just really didn't like it. Our neighbour's dog had been barking throughout the entire thing and it really put me off. So I'm starting over again. I wiped the same canvas off, and I was able to do that because I had put a coat of pale blue acrylic, which gives a hard shiny surface to the canvas, and if you don't like what you're doing, you can just wipe it off and start over again, which is what I'm doing. So I'm just putting in a background of blues and greens and sienna and probably a little alizarin, and I'm just going to start all over again, and that's all I can do. So I've got all my colour on the canvas, and I picked up a couple of these, I think they're called kabuki brushes from the Dollar Tree. They're $1 each, and they are wonderful for blending, and cheap. You can't complain about that, can you? And I'm just going to blend in my background, give me a nice soft background for this painting. With titanium white, I've sketched out a rough outline of my vase, and now I'm going to use a mixture of raw sienna and sap green, little alizarin crimson in there, maybe a little yellow, and I'm going to put in my stems, and it's just a rough sketch of where everything's going to be. I'm putting in a rough indication of where the leaves are going to be. They are usually in groups of 3 on roses, so that makes it easy. I'm using alizarin crimson to put in a dark center to my rose, and I'll pull my paler pinks into that center for my petals. I start off with the darkest and then go to a sort of a mid-tone, and then I'll use at the end straight white, titanium white, to give the petals a translucency. I feel the vase is too wide, so I'm going to just use a rag and narrow it by just wiping out that part. It doesn't matter, you can do that, and you can just paint in around it. It's no problem. Since I'm using water mixable oils, the background is still workable, so I haven't any extra paint on my brush. I'm just scrubbing over that background to make it work, to bring it closer to the vase or the vase, however you like to say that. So I'm going to add a little more to my stems and leaves, work on those a little bit. I have sap green with a little alizarin crimson in it. I'm going to strengthen my stems with some raw umber as well. You will see some of the stems in the vase. There will be reflections on there and the water distortion, but you'll still see them. I'm using a lighter pink to put in my petals, and I'm starting with the ones that would be furthest away if you were standing in front of the rose, on the opposite side of the rose. I start the petals at the outer edge and pull them towards the center. The only other stroke I do is when you're seeing the tops of the inner petals, and those are sideways swipes, like this. So I've decided I need another rose here. I went away, left it for a while, and then came back and decided I need more to this picture than one rose and two buds. So I've decided to put another large rose slightly below and beneath that star rose, and indicate to the left hand side a rose behind that you can just see a few petals of, and you might see a little bit through the glass. I'm using the same technique that I do on all my roses. I put in a dark center, pull all the petals in towards that center, except those that you only see the tops of, and those are sideways swipes. You just have to practice. I always say that if you paint 100 roses, then you get roses and you'll be able to come up with something that looks like a rose. I've added some cad yellow and some titanium white, and I'm making my leaves on the side where they would be caught by the light paler. I'm leaving all the ones on the right hand side dark. Maybe a tip or a touch here and there would catch the light, but that's all. I'm putting in some reflections using titanium white. The glass will pick up the color of whatever's in it too, so there'll be some pink of the rose in there, maybe some green of the leaves. And I like to put a sort of reflection of something definite, like a window. It's just a little trick I use to make glass seem more glassy. I'm going to put some lights on the petals as well. I'm just using titanium white at this point. I find I have to keep going in and adding the white over and over because as it dries it dulls down and you lose that light effect, that you lose the translucency too. So I keep coming back in and touching that up all the time. Putting in a reflection of light underneath the vase as well as on the tabletop beside the vase where the light goes through it. I'm mixing raw sienna and a little alizarin crimson, and I'm going to paint in the centers, the stamens I think it is, of the rose. I'm going to do a little more work on the buds. They have 5 sepals, and I'm just sort of reinforcing them at this stage. I try to work on my pictures overall, a little bit at a time, and develop it overall as I go, rather than one area at a time. So I'm reinforcing those whites again, the light on the petals. It's a constant project. I'm reinforcing my stems and petals. I use raw umber and also alizarin crimson to add interest, to give it a little, sort of pump up the colour a little here and there. And I go over the painting, working round and round, reinforcing, strengthening my lights and darks, my shadows. And that's how you do it. You just keep going around, touching up here and there until you get it where you want it. I think I'll add a twig, just to balance out the picture. I've got quite a lot of stuff going on the right hand side, so I think a twig will just add a little interest up the opposite corner. Okay, so looking at that, it's quite nice, but it's boring. So I've added some alizarin and some cad red to make this pink, and I'm going to give a pop of colour to the lower one, and the top one I'm going to add white to make that my star. So here we go. I'll overlap the petals of the top rows after I've got the lower rows sorted out. I like that a little better. I'm going to put I'm happier with that. Okay, now I'm going to start on that top rose, which is my star, so it's the palest of the two roses because it will stand out more that way, and we'll see how that goes. I'm overlapping that lower rose. It looks better that way if one rose has a few petals that encroach or shadow the other rose. It looks more realistic, in my opinion. I'm much happier with that. Thanks for watching.